Discover how a lonely single mom transformed her life when a drunk CEO revealed his hidden feelings. Sarah wiped down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that night, her eyes glazed over and her heart heavy with exhaustion. It was one of those Texas evenings when the sun descended like a fiery orange ball, casting a warm glow that illuminated the diner, the real heartbeat of their small town. It buzzed with locals, each meal stirring up laughter and gossip, cloaked in the aroma of burnt coffee and greasy burgers. But for Sarah, it was another late night, another reminder of the daily grind. The judgmental eyes of some patrons bore into her, each one whispering the same narrative: single mom, failure. Just as she filled another cup of coffee, the bell above the door jingled, and a disheveled man stumbled in, his charisma struggling to break through the haze of intoxication. Jake. The name resonated with her like a forgotten memory. He was the CEO who had shaken the corporate world with his tech innovations. Tonight, he seemed just human, vulnerable even. "Can I get you something?" Sarah asked, suppressing her weariness. He slumped into a booth, his face twisted in distress. "Just coffee. Please." His voice cracked, heavy with emotion. It sparked her curiosity. Why was this man, whose life seemed so perfect by societal standards, drowning at a diner of all places? As she poured, he began to spill more than just secrets. Over steaming mugs, they shared their burdens: his betrayal from a trusted colleague and her constant fear of not being enough for her children. Sarah found herself oddly soothed by Jake's honesty. In his eyes, she saw a hidden depth she hadn't expected from someone so seemingly self-assured. Yet, with every laugh and exchanged glance, a creeping feeling tugged at her heart. Could she truly trust this man? Before they could explore the budding connection further, Sarah's mind leapt to her reality. The factory scandal linked to Jake's company echoed painfully. Her late mother had worked there, sewing clothes for minimum wage just to keep food on the table. When the factory closed, a whole chapter of their lives crumbled, sending them spiraling into financial instability. What would it mean for her children, now, if she maintained this bond with a man whose actions stripped so many of their livelihoods? She felt the weight of that truth crushing her. Was she merely playing the part of a mother, or could she be a beacon of justice for those who had suffered? Torn between the friendship that was forming and the desire to expose him for the hurt he caused, she felt layers of dread unveil before her. She could confront him, or she could let it go, hoping for a better future. Her integrity screamed for action, but a darker part of her whispered of newfound dreams that might come from aligning her fate with his. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the night stretched on, Sarah's internal conflict tightened its grip. She could see Jake's vulnerability. Couldn't this man, flawed and struggling, also inspire her? Yet with every laugh, a swell of anger washed over her. Was he just another architect of her suffering disguised in charm? Her heart raced, thoughts swirling. He sensed her unease, yet remained blissfully unaware of how deeply he affected her life. Just as she summoned the courage to confront him and bridge the chasm of their different worlds, the diner door swung open again, and in walked a shadow from her past. It was Jake's rival, a man who would shatter everything Sarah had built. Her heart dropped. Everything hinged on this moment. Could she allow herself this precious connection, or would loyalty to her past rip it away? The tension thickened, the dawn inching closer, casting a new light on the choices ahead. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, her heart racing as she locked eyes with the man who had once dominated conversations in her family home, the very reason for her mother's despair after the factory closed. Michael Bridges, the rival CEO, walked in with an air of confidence that set her teeth on edge. The atmosphere shifted, laughter dying down to a tense murmur as curiosity mingled with unease. "Sarah, what a surprise to see you here," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. At that moment, a tight knot of anger unfurled inside Sarah. Here was the man who represented everything she wanted to confront, and there was Jake, the man whose demons had started to intertwine with her daily life. What would Michael say if he knew she'd dared to bond with a man from the other side of the industry? Just working, she replied, keeping her tone steady, masking the disarray inside. Michael looked from her to Jake, a calculating gaze assessing the implications of their connection. I didn't expect to find you with this. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Imperfect man. Jake's expression shifted, understanding the slight as it hung in the air. Sarah felt the weight of judgment imposed on her from both men. Would she allow them to define her existence? Imperfect has its charm, don't you think? She retorted, surprised by her own fortitude while she masked her fear. The confrontation stirred a flame inside her, a voice hidden beneath years of dismissiveness. Is charm what you seek for your children, Sarah? Or stability? He probed, his tone challenging, as if he were trying to peel away the layers of her defenses. Her heart raced again, not out of fear, but something akin to exhilaration, a newfound determination. Sarah felt as if she stood on a precipice, eyes wide open to the risks that lay ahead. The moment felt pregnant with possibilities, and perhaps it was a juncture where her past collided with her own awakening. Michael's words struck her, but they ignited a fire rather than extinguish her spirit. She realized she could no longer be defined by their opinions or missteps. She thought of her children, their future, her mother's sacrifices, everything coalescing into a single truth. She had the right to make her own choices, not dictated by men who had caused her pain. Stability doesn't necessarily come from the suits, Michael. It can come from understanding and growth. Sarah shot back, a flicker of warmth towards Jake igniting amidst the cold tension. Every pulse of energy in the diner shifted as the locals leaned in, captivated by the confrontation unfolding before them. It struck her that she could influence the narrative, that she had a voice. In this precious moment, she chose to embrace it. Sarah was not a victim, she was a mother, a worker, and now, she might also be an agent of change. But the resentment tied to Jake's past loomed right behind her. Could she really accept a connection that might lead her further from the truth while simultaneously shining a light on her own desires? As she faced Michael, the realization solidified. To navigate her future with Jake would require confronting her past head-on. She would need to hold both men accountable in different ways. Before she could verbalize the shift within her, an urgent thought surged through her mind like a welcomed revelation. It was time to redefine what was at stake, not just for herself, but for her children. She could steer this budding relationship to turn into something powerful, not just for them, but for all who felt forgotten. But as Michael smirked, a casual predator aware of the fragility surrounding Sarah, she understood the stakes were escalating. What required addressing now was not just about choosing a path, but peeling back layers of betrayal still entwined in her life. The air hummed thickly, destiny swirling in the garage of decisions. With every heartbeat, she braced for the next steps. What truths would she unearth next? Could she truly confront both men, and if so, what alliances would emerge from this battleground of emotional stakes? The moment of truth was fast approaching, and with it, a path fraught with uncertainty waited to be walked. Sarah stood amidst the shifting tension in the diner, pulse quickening with every passing second. The atmosphere, charged with unsaid words and staring eyes, became her stage. Each moment seemed to stretch into an eternity, a crucible for her burgeoning identity. As much as Michael represented a past she wished to escape, he symbolized the challenge she needed to conquer. Why do you care so much about their futures? Michael kept pushing, his voice almost condescending. The children, Sarah. They deserve to be raised in stability, not an emotional mess. Her mind raced. Did he genuinely care about her children, or was this just another control tactic? She caught a glimpse of Jake's expression, and a sense of solidarity surged within her. That was the crux of it. Usually, she felt beholden to society's demands. Today was different. She was ready to disrupt that cycle. Maybe it's time we redefine what stability actually means, she replied, her resolve gaining strength. I refuse to believe that your way is the only way. The diner buzzed, anticipation electrifying the space. No one said it was the only way. I merely offered a perspective rooted in experience, Michael said, his tone sharpening. Experience that's brought you nothing but pain for those you've left behind, she shot back. The words escaped before she could cage them. Each syllable felt liberating, as if a cage she had long been in was suddenly flung open. Michael stared at her, confusion flashing across his face. What do you think you're gaining here, Sarah? He questioned, irritation creeping into his voice. An identity, she countered, each word weighted with purpose. The weight of her past felt lighter now, tempered by the resolve to tear away from predefined notions of worth. She thought of her children, their laughter echoing in her mind, and the clarity seeped into her being. This was about teaching them to cherish authenticity. Jake murmured something, low enough that she barely heard. When she turned to him, she found not a defeated man but a partner who was digesting it all. The glimmer in his eyes told her that he, too, was beginning to understand the stakes, the journey that lay ahead of them both. The weight of Michael's presence became intolerable. This wasn't just about their past, nor just about her mother's pain. It was about her reclaiming a narrative that had long held her captive. Sarah refused to continue being defined by others' expectations. Maybe it's time you realize, Michael, that instability breeds growth, she stated, her voice steady and unwavering. The world isn't built on sown seeds. It's thriving in raw passion, in taking risks, and elevating above the ordinary. The silence that followed was palpable, wrapping around her like the soft embrace of clarity. She could almost visualize the diverging paths before her. One led back to the security of anonymity, molded by fear and adherence to social constraints. The other beckoned her to explore herself, each twist and turn a fierce manifestation of who she truly was, not who she was told to be. As the tension thickened, a realization struck her: there would need to be more direct confrontation with Jake about their shared baggage. Could she delve into the realms of his past, the memories he avoided, the pain he concealed? These were crucial conversations, ones that could either solidify their bond or unravel it. Are you finished? Michael's voice broke through her contemplation, sounding defensive and small amidst her burgeoning confidence. Not by a long shot, she replied, smirking slightly. Unexpectedly, she turned and faced Jake, sensing the moment to invite him into her reckoning. We need to talk. About what happens next. The urgency of her situation crackled in the air, a moment suspended in time, waiting to explode. What would they unearth about each other? Could vulnerability become strength through shared sacrifice and revelations? With a nod from Jake, she felt momentum shift. As she prepared to break the silence that had defined her past, it occurred to her this was more than dialogue, it was a path toward reclaiming who she was. But would the heart-thudding risk of this truth lead to liberation or pain? The stakes shifted yet again, as the moments hung heavy with the unspoken promise of revelation. As the diner's chatter faded into the background, Sarah felt a shift inside her, a burgeoning strength that she had never fully acknowledged before. The eyes around her, initially piercing and judgmental, now seemed to hold a strange mix of curiosity and respect. It was intoxicating, this sense of power to articulate a truth that had long been buried beneath layers of insecurity. Let's get out of here, Jake suggested, breaking the charged silence. His voice resonated with a warmth that pulled her attention back to him. She could see the tension ebbing from his shoulders, and for the first time, she noticed a small flicker of hope threading through his expression. They exited together, the brisk air hitting her face like a splash of cold water. Sarah breathed deeply, as if expelling remnants of the past with each exhale. The world outside felt broader. This wasn't just about Michael, it was about the choices lingering in the corridor of her future, ripe for the taking. Sarah, Jake began, his tone earnest, and earnestness always seemed to require a leap of faith. What you did tonight, it was extraordinary. You stood your ground. I've never seen you like that. A smile tugged at her lips, an unfamiliar sensation that warmed her insides. I'm just tired of letting others dictate my story. I want my kids to see what it means to live authentically. We can't teach them about courage if we hide from our own fears, can we? He nodded, his expression reflecting deep understanding. But there was a shadow in his gaze that spoke of his own unspoken battles. I get it. But that's a heavy burden to carry alone. We both have our past to confront. His words hung between them, laced with unaddressed issues. Sarah felt the weight of her own history pressing down again. Her resolve faltered momentarily. She had been so focused on her own narrative that she had neglected how their shared past impacted Jake. The realization sent ripples of guilt through her, but she quickly brushed it aside. This clarity demanded to take form. Maybe we can unpack that together, she suggested, her voice steady. I don't want to pretend like we're okay just because we're moving forward. We owe it to ourselves to be real about our struggles. I agree, he said, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. But it's easier said than done. We've both built walls. He paused and searched her gaze. I still have demons of my own. Her heart raced. What were these demons? Did they resemble her own, or were they far more sinister? The prospect of discovering more about Jake's past both thrilled and terrified her. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, where a leap could lead to freedom or disaster. What's holding you back? Jake swallowed hard, his vulnerability palpable. Fear, I guess. Fear of what I'll find if I dig deep. But maybe facing those fears is the real path to growth. Then let us explore it together. We're not alone in this, she said, steeling herself for what was to come. Let us define our own journey, no remnants of our past connections guiding our decisions. The moment lingered, charged with unspoken promises. As they walked side by side, a deeper understanding started to weave itself into the fabric of their relationship. They had each other, and though uncharted, a shared future felt possible. She could feel the air shift, the taste of change lingering in her mouth. Excitement threatened to overwhelm her at the thought of peeling back layers of their identities, exposing scars and triumphs alike. Trust would take center stage, and this revelation was a pivotal moment in their evolution. As they neared the park where their children often played, Sarah was suddenly aware of her own heartbeat, thrumming with a mix of anticipation and fear. Could this painful excavation truly bring healing, or would it ignite old wounds? It felt like a gamble, but one she was willing to take. Let us promise to be honest. No more masks, she proposed, her heart racing with hope. Jake met her gaze with determination. Agreed. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The night held a million possibilities, and as they stepped forward, Sarah understood that the real journey was just beginning. The uncharted territory of their emotional landscapes awaited them, with revelations poised to shine illuminating truths on their shared existence. What deeper truths lay beyond, and would they emerge stronger or fragmented? The winds of change whipped at her back, guiding her toward the unknown. The crisp air felt electric as Sarah and Jake stepped into the park, a familiar playground transformed under the dim glow of streetlights. Shadows danced along the ground, and the chirping of crickets filled the silence, underscoring the gravity of their uncharted emotional expedition. The vastness of the evening loomed before them, mirroring the vastness of their unresolved pasts. Jake's admission about his fears resurfaced in her mind, intertwining with her own turmoil. What haunted him? What specters did they both carry, unwittingly dragging them down while they attempted to soar? Instead of recoiling from the discomfort, she steeled herself, ready to confront not only her fears but also the manifestations of Jake's. Let us find a bench, she suggested, her voice steady despite the storm within. I think we need a place to sit down and really talk. Jake nodded, and they settled onto a cold metal bench, its frigidness contrasting with the warmth of the connection they had just ignited. The park was nearly empty, just a few silhouettes of joggers passing by. It felt more intimate this way, as if the universe had conspired to grant them this moment of clarity. Okay, I'll go first, Sarah began, her voice firmer than she felt. I've always felt that I wasn't enough. Not a good enough mother, partner, or even friend. My entire identity seemed dependent on the approval of others, my parents, Michael. It's exhausting, like walking a tightrope. Watching Jake's reaction, she noticed a flicker of recognition pass over his features, urging her to continue. It's not that I believe I'm inadequate, she pressed on. But when every decision I make is about meeting someone else's expectations rather than my own, it breeds a kind of self-doubt that never quite goes away. I'm afraid that if I drop the mask, if I step out of line, I'll fall. Jake breathed deeply, letting her words filter through him. You're stronger than you think, Sarah. But I get it, he replied quietly. I've worn a mask, too. Being a CEO meant I had to be in control, to project this image of perfection, but inside, it's chaotic. I lost my best friend to my own ambition, and for what? A title I thought would validate me. His confession hung heavily in the air, a raw testament to both the pressures of success and the sacrifices made in pursuit of it. Sarah's heart ached for him, recognizing the toll that such expectations could take. Why was it so easy to drown in the expectations of others? What do you think you'll find if you dig deep? She asked carefully, seeking his truth. What are you really afraid of? Vulnerability, I guess, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Revealing who I am beyond the business suit, beyond the titles. There's a real fear that people will reject me. Lately, I've started to wonder if my role defines me or if I am meant for more. They shared a moment of silence, each grappling with the implications of their shared revelations. It was a crucial threshold they faced, one that could either bind them together or amplify the distance between their hearts. Maybe we can redefine what success looks like, Sarah suggested tentatively, her thoughts churning an idea birthed from vulnerability. What if our courage comes from shedding expectations, from being real about our flaws? What if facing our demons allows us to finally find freedom? His eyes sparkled with the warmth of possibility, igniting a flicker of hope inside her. Then maybe we can forge a new narrative, a narrative that belongs solely to us. One built on authenticity. She felt buoyed by the concept, the very language of personal empowerment rising from their exchange. This was more than mere dialogue, it was the groundwork for reclaiming their stories. In that moment, they both sensed the dawning of a new chapter, one where they could confront their pasts together, rather than allowing them to dictate their futures. Just as a smile broke across her face at the potential of what lay ahead, distant echoes of laughter from children playing nearby suddenly pierced the air, drawing them from their focused discussions. Let us take one step at a time, she said. But I can't help but wonder what else lies beneath the surface of your past. What will happen when we unravel those layers? Jake looked at her thoughtfully, a mix of determination and anxiety etched across his face. Only one way to find out, he replied, the energy shifting between them once again, setting them both on edge. As the shadows deepened around them, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the edge of something monumental, an awakening for both, but also, perhaps, a revelation neither of them was entirely ready to face. What truths would emerge when they dared to peer into the depths of their own reflections? Sarah sat on the bench, the biting chill of the metal seeping into her jeans, but she barely noticed. She was lost in Jake's admission, the weight of his vulnerability puzzled but intrigued her. Unraveling the layers of someone else's past often drew attention away from one's own, but this was different. This felt like an opening, one that challenged her to confront her own guarded secrets. Vulnerability, she echoed softly, turning the word over like a talisman in her mind. Was that truly what kept her shackled? Could exposing the tender parts of herself spark the liberation she sought? The echoes of laughter from the nearby playground continued to flit around them, a stark contrast to the seriousness of their conversation. Inside, her thoughts whirled. Did vulnerability truly mean revealing the parts that scared her most? The moments where she felt inadequate, where she feared rejection? Yet, wasn't that what it meant to genuinely connect with someone? She broke the silence, centering her thoughts. It's terrifying to think that opening up can feel like unraveling a tightly wound thread, isn't it? You pull, and next thing you know, everything starts to fall apart. Jake nodded, his expression serious, as he considered her words. Sure, but the fear of falling apart is also the fear of not truly living, he remarked, the intensity in his gaze unwavering. What's worse, a life filled with safety nets or a life where you actually risk something meaningful? The challenge hung in the air like a challenge thrown at her feet, and for a moment, she faltered. Could she truly take that leap? The idea of risking her heart felt dangerously exhilarating, yet filled with a disquiet she couldn't shake. I worry that if I let go, she began, hesitating momentarily as she weathered the storm of her own fears, I might drift away from everything I know. I've spent so long building a persona that shields me from the opinions of others, from their judgment. What if peeling back those layers exposes just how fragile I really am? His eyes softened, and she caught a glimpse of the man beneath the bravado, the one who, like her, was learning how to navigate the tangled lines of authenticity. Then we can face it together, Sarah. It doesn't have to be a solitary exploration. You're stronger than you think. His words sparked something deep within her, a flicker of resolve igniting from the depths of her being. Maybe it is time for a new narrative. I've spent too long in survival mode, catering to what others wanted from me, she said, vocalizing a thought she'd harbored quietly for far too long. It's as if I've placed my identity in a box labeled functioning mother, dutiful employee, and I'm afraid to open it. Then let us empty that box, even if it means confronting the chaos inside, he urged. Their breaths mingled in the cold air, and at that moment, Sarah understood the significance of what they were discussing, not just the act of vulnerability, but the necessity for transformation. She was aware now, as the thought solidified, that embracing her authentic self meant embracing discomfort. The individuals who navigated their own vulnerabilities illuminated her path, revealing hidden aspects of herself she'd long overlooked. What if we set goals for ourselves? She proposed, excitement peppering her features. Not just professional targets, but personal ones. Pushing past our fears or taking small steps towards revealing ourselves. Jake's strong nod radiated encouragement. It's a promising starting point. What do you have in mind? As she pondered, a daring thought crossed her mind. I might need to make a list, a tangible reminder of what I truly want to go after, both in my career and personal life. It could be liberating to face specific challenges weekly. Count me in for that, he said, a grin breaking through, illuminating the dimness. The prospect of redefining their realities and intertwining their journeys felt too enticing to resist. But just as excitement pierced through her uncertainty, her phone pinged, jolting her back to reality. Duty calls, she murmured, glancing at the screen, a message from Michael. The tension instantly darkened her mood as anxiety washed over her like a cold wave. Hey, are you okay? Jake asked, sensing the shift. Yeah, I will be, she lied, her voice trembling slightly. He leaned closer. You sure? You can tell me. She hesitated, caught between the urge to protect her burgeoning connection with him and the impending entanglement with her ex-husband. But the reality slid down her throat, heavy and sour. Unraveling the past was one thing, yet confronting it head-on where it could intrude upon her newfound hopes was something entirely different. As their gaze locked, anticipation danced between them, teetering on the edge of something significant. Maybe we both have more to face than just our insecurities, she finally said, the strength draining from her smile as a pang of fear gripped her heart. Jake's expression hardened, a reflection of understanding and shared apprehensions. Then I guess it's time to face whatever is waiting for us. Together. The shadows around them deepened, a tangible presence of the shifting tides of their realities, and as Sarah slid her phone back into her pocket, she couldn't escape the looming question. What awaited them in their personal confrontations? The next steps would be a vital test of their strength and resolve. The winds began to pick up as Sarah walked away from the bench, each step feeling heavier than the last. The message from Michael still echoed in her mind, a reminder of her responsibilities and unresolved tensions. How could she keep making strides toward authenticity when remnants of her past lingered, threatening to pull her back into the whirlwind of complications? She clenched her fists in her pockets, trying to gather fragments of courage amid the tumult of emotions. What would her life look like if she was willing to confront those pieces? Could she face Michael without crumbling, without allowing his needs to eclipse her own ambitions? It was time to explore the chaos she had been harboring for too long. Arriving home, she took a moment, grounding herself at the threshold. The familiar surroundings shimmered with unspoken memories, playdates, late nights spent on the couch lost in thoughts of better times, glimpses of the woman she used to be before she traded dreaming for simply getting through the day. The children's laughter rang from the living room, filling her with warmth that contrasted sharply with the discomfort bubbling under her skin. Should she dive into her list of personal goals? The prospect felt tantalizing yet daunting. She wanted to start with small, actionable steps rather than succumb to the overwhelming weight of transformation. Combating safety with vulnerability required intention and planning. But how? Mommy. Her youngest, Ella, dashed into her embrace, breaking Sarah's spiral of self-doubt. The affection ignited a flicker of happiness, one she wanted to consume while still battling her core misgivings. "I'm here, sweetheart," Sarah replied, ruffling Ella's hair. "I'm just thinking about some important things. Can I help?" Ella's eyes sparkled, as if she sensed her mother's quest for renewal. Perhaps this was the moment to invite her children into the conversation, not as burdens but as collaborators. "Actually, yes. How about we create a family list of goals? What do you want to do this week?" Ella jumped excitedly, listing off activities, documenting adventures, even volunteering together. Each suggestion unfolded layers of potential, a prospect of nurturing connections rather than simply fulfilling obligations. Sarah's heart pounded with mounting anticipation. Collaboration within her family might be the antidote to her isolated struggles. As they sat together later, markers in hand, Sarah began to outline her aspirations: do the unknown, enroll in a workshop, or even reconnect with friends she had lost touch with. She felt the flutter of empowerment each time a new idea touched the page. With Ella contributing silly suggestions, and even her older son, Kevin, chiming in with plans for camping trips, the words morphed into a visible manifestation of hope. That shift sparked deeper reflections. What did she fear most when it came to Michael? Was it the guilt of not meeting the expectations he established, or was it the reflection of what could have been? She craved clarity. The anxiety surrounding their interactions reminded her of how little control she had often given him. By the time they finished, she couldn't ignore the underlying reality anymore. Somehow, the phone call with Michael had to happen, but now the tone had shifted. The narrative was no longer about fearing confrontation but embracing it as necessary for change, a stepping stone to her liberation. That evening, she mentally rehearsed what she would say during that call, formulating a strategy that felt empowered rather than defensive. She would need to assert her desires while respecting her boundaries, maintaining the conversations around the children's well-being rather than personal conflicts. And although the feeling of anxiety shimmered below the surface, mere acknowledgement of it transformed dread into determination. She was ready, albeit apprehensive, to untangle the threads. As she scrolled through her messages on her phone, she paused, contemplating if she should reveal her ambitions to Michael in the same conversation. The idea floated tantalizingly close but remained a lingering doubt. Then the phone rang again, breaking the stillness. Sarah's heart raced as she glimpsed the name on the screen: Michael. Now, was it time to embrace confrontation? Taking a deep breath and steadying herself, she realized, it was not just about the conversation ahead. It was about reclaiming her narrative, pushing against boundaries she had once let limit her. With resolve forged from her intentions, she answered the call, embracing the uncertainty of her decision. The unfolding confrontation awaited her, a crucible for the transformation she had set in motion. Hey, Michael. How would she articulate her newfound strength in the face of challenges that awaited her? The threshold was crossed, but what lay beyond? Hey, Sarah. Michael's voice crackled through the speaker, tinged with a casual familiarity that sent a jolt of unease coursing through her. The nonchalance masked an undercurrent of tension that mirrored her own. "Hi, Michael," she replied, her voice steady despite the rapid beating of her heart. Each word felt like a careful negotiation of the ground beneath her. "I got your message." "Good. Listen, there's a lot we need to clarify." The way he started felt predictable, and Sarah sensed the familiar power dynamics creeping back in. Instinctively, she took a deep breath, grounding herself in the intention she had set earlier. Agreed. But first, can we talk about how we're moving forward with the kids? She felt a powerful wave of her vulnerability pushing against her, a tide of anxiety threatening to drown her conviction. Yet, this time, she fought it back, urging herself to stay proactive instead of reactive. There was a moment of silence on the other end, and she could almost hear the gears in his mind whirring. Yeah, sure. They've been great, you know. I want to make sure we're on the same page. It was small, strategic even, but recognition of his children's well-being prompted an internal shift in her mindset. This wasn't just a conversation about them, it was also a testament to her reclaiming her voice. Exactly. And I think we need to create a balanced schedule for them. I also really want to explore some activities that they enjoy, something new they can look forward to. Michael's reply came quick, but there was an edge to it. You mean like the camping trips Kevin suggested? Haven't we been through this? Don't you think they need consistency rather than more chaos? Consistency is crucial, but so is growth, Michael. Trying new things nurtures their development, she countered, the words tumbling out with newfound confidence. I'd like us to foster their interests and strengthen their bond with each other. He was silent again, and at that moment, Sarah seized the opportunity to inject her aspirations into the flow of their conversation. And speaking of interests, I've decided to enroll in a workshop this fall. It's a step towards something I've wanted to pursue for a while now. The sudden shift in the dialogue felt liberating, almost electrifying. The air between them thickened with unsaid questions. Could he perceive the weight she had lifted off her shoulders? What workshop? The question came with a hint of skepticism. Creative writing, she stated firmly, feeling a rush of boldness. It's something I've always loved, and I think it could help me reframe my experiences for myself and for the kids. Michael scoffed lightly through the phone, a sound that struck her but didn't knock her off course. You really think that's what the kids need? A mom who spends time writing instead of focusing on them? Sarah felt her resolve harden in the face of his dismissiveness. What they need is for me to be fulfilled and engaged in life, not just to be a caregiver. When I actively pursue my dreams, it sets an example for them about following their passions. I want to apologize for that. The clarion call of intent reverberated through her mind as she voiced it. This wasn't merely self-assertion, it was an invitation to clarity, both for her sake and for her children's future. Michael finally responded, his tone now heavy with unfamiliarity. I didn't realize that. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Those words cut deeper than she anticipated, revealing the reality of their mismatched perceptions. It pressed her to confront the narrative she often let him dictate. Maybe because I was too focused on what you wanted instead of what I need. But things are changing, Michael. I have to embrace this if I want to truly grow. Is that really what you want? He replied, uncertainty creeping into his voice. Do you even need to ask? This is about my journey. If that's hard for you to understand, maybe we need to rethink our conversations altogether. In that moment, clarity pierced through the fog of confusion, awakening her to the gravity of her choice. She wasn't just fighting for her future, she was redefining the very essence of her existence. And it felt exhilarating that as they continued to navigate the complexities of their discussion, Sarah felt a sense of power pulsing through her veins. She could see clearly into the depths of her aspirations, tinging her anxieties with purpose, but while one revelation unfolded, another gnawed at her consciousness. Would this bold stance alienate Michael further, or could it, somehow, bridge the chasm? What if this confrontation sparked more than a mere shift in their relationship? What if it led her to finally confront her own deeply buried resentments, not just towards Michael, but towards herself as well? The lingering uncertainty loomed large, leaving her at a precipice, no longer doubting her worth, yet uncertain of the path ahead. Sarah, wait. Let's talk about this more. There's something else we need to. The phone slipped from her fingers, cutting off his last words as Sarah stared at the screen in disbelief. She realized this was not just about their conversation anymore. It was about the profound evolution of who she was becoming. With her heart racing and her mind swirling with possibility, Sarah braced herself for whatever configuration the future might hold. As she considered what was at stake, she knew this was just the beginning of her transformation. But now the question remained: what other truths lay hidden beneath the surface, waiting for her to confront them? The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah stared at the phone in her hand, contemplating how this moment was not just about Michael, but a reflection of who she had become. Dipping back into uncertainty was no longer an option. She had finally sent ripples into their stagnant dynamic, and now it was time to explore the depths of her own aspirations. With a resolve kindled by her recent declaration, she stood up, her body almost humming with energy. The day was fading outside. Golden light slipped through the gaps in the curtains, illuminating the dust motes in the air. She needed to harness this newfound fire. Choosing a small corner of her living room that doubled as a workspace, she pulled out a notebook and pen, her favorite tools now loaded with potential. Writing had been her sanctuary throughout the turmoil of her relationship with Michael, and now, it felt necessary for her growth. She opened to a blank page, the stark emptiness mirroring the potential within her, a blank canvas ready for vivid strokes of emotion and experience. As her pen glided across the page, she focused on detailing her past experiences, feeling the warmth of clarity surrounding the frustrations and joys intertwined within them. Distilled on the page, her memories began to transform from static moments into powerful narratives. Each line she wrote challenged her vulnerability and pushed the boundaries of her self-imposed limitations. Suddenly, a wave of realization washed over her. Embracing one's passions did not only elevate personal fulfillment, it acted as a mirror through which her children could view their own pursuits and dreams. It was a realization that fused her love for writing with her role as a mother. This wasn't just an act of creation for her own sake. It was a model for her children to pursue their own paths, stimulating their imaginations and encouraging their aspirations. With determined strokes, she penned down her aspirations for the workshop, feeling the anticipation of what lay ahead. The thought of connecting with other aspiring writers fluttered in her chest. Networking with others in creative fields could lead to exciting opportunities or collaborations. The idea flooded her with possibilities, diminishing any lingering fear she might have had of embarrassment or judgment. Each letter she formed became a declaration of her agency, an escape from the shadows of her self-doubt. The clock turned, and she couldn't help but reflect on recent conversations. Had Michael been shocked by her aspirations merely because he was unaccustomed to witnessing her assert her desires? This new image of herself where she wasn't silenced by his opinions became intoxicating, as if she were tasting freedom for the very first time. Would he eventually adapt, or would this newfound assertiveness expose deeper fractures within their relationship? The uncertainty of it all lingered, but now it felt bearable, even motivational. With a swift motion, she flipped back to jot down an idea that had resurfaced, a story rooted in her past that seemed to shimmer with authenticity. But with every epiphany came a question: how honest was she prepared to be? The depths of her truth beckoned, daring her to confront unresolved emotions, including the resentments festering beneath the surface that had limited her. The idea of taking responsibility for her memories led her to sketch out potential themes for her workshop. While the thought of sharing deeply personal stories in a group sparked anxiety, it also ignited curiosity. Perhaps, that vulnerability could be the missing link in her creative journey. Could exposing her truth, her struggles, liberate her not just from Michael, but from the stagnant self she had become? Yet just as excitement bloomed, she felt doubt seep back in. What if her stories were rejected? What if they only served as proof that she had been a failure? The stakes felt higher than ever. Nevertheless, she reminded herself that growth was not without risks. Would she let fear continue to dictate her choices, or would she carve out a legacy that could inspire not only her children but herself as well? As she fought through these thoughts, her phone buzzed again. The caller ID flashed with Michael's name, and a flurry of mixed emotions surged within her. Would he lash out in frustration or invite her to negotiate their complex relationship further? Only one way to find out. Taking a deep breath, she prepared to answer. The moments of truth were drawing closer. Would he take a step toward understanding, or would confrontation reignite the old patterns? Her pulse quickened as she swiped to take the call, ready to recast their narrative. Everything was hanging in balance, the burgeoning chapters of her life waiting to be written. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window, casting a soft glow on the remnants of yesterday's chaos. Sarah stood at the counter, the smell of fresh coffee grounding her as she prepared breakfast for her children. The previous evening's conversation with Michael continued to reverberate in her mind. She had taken a stand, a pivotal moment that set her on a new course. The warm laughter of Ella and Kevin filled the air, and for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a rush of optimism. They were following her lead in pursuing their own aspirations, and it felt invigorating. She turned, her gaze landing on her children as they animatedly planned their weekend activities. "That sounds amazing. What else do you want to do?" she asked, leaning into their excitement. It was infectious, igniting a vigor within her heart that she had sorely missed. In that moment, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. Not just from the fraught conversations with Michael but also from the years of self-doubt that had clouded her ability to truly live. The pressure to conform to his expectations had weighed heavily upon her. Yet now, she was stepping boldly into the light, shaking off the weight of her past. Days turned into a week, and with renewed vigor, Sarah attended the creative writing workshop she had longed for. The first session was exhilarating. Surrounded by like-minded individuals, she felt her heart swell as they shared their stories. Each narrative resonated deeply within her. Authenticity flooded the room, filling the cracks that had long gone unhealed. "I've always felt like I had to keep my voice hidden," Sarah shared during a small group discussion. "But the more I write, the more I discover that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. It's where my stories are born." The group nodded, their understanding palpable. In the subsequent weeks, each session built upon the last, and Sarah became enchanted by the idea that her journey once defined by others could redefine her sense of identity. Meanwhile, her relationship with Jake matured alongside her self-discovery. They shared insights and fears in a way that felt different from the barriers of judgment that had once divided them. Together, they confronted their pasts in candid exchanges, weaving their vulnerabilities into a tapestry of trust. Jake opened up about his ambition and the losses intertwined in his rise to success. "I've spent too long living in a facade, thinking that if I looked perfect, I'd be accepted," he confessed on one of their evening walks. "But I want to break free from that, just like you." "Then let us shed those layers together," she had replied, feeling a surge of solidarity between them. They spent hours walking and talking, each step a testament to their commitment to growth not only as individuals but as partners. As the family rhythms evolved, so did her relationship with Michael. Sarah approached him with a posture of clarity rather than defensiveness during their next conversation. They discussed their children's needs, mapping out a framework that prioritized stability yet allowed for exploration and growth. Sarah skillfully redirected the discussions towards mutual respect for their autonomy, her goals intertwined with the aspirations they had for their kids. "I've realized that our children need to see us pursue our passions as much as they need a stable home," she explained firmly. Michael, caught off guard by her resolve, didn't retaliate. Instead, he conceded to acknowledging her evolving self. Perhaps his own insecurities in the face of her strength propelled him to see her anew, and he couldn't help but appreciate her transformation. Weeks turned to months, and Sarah relished in the recognition of her persistence. As the writing workshop concluded, she held in her hands a collection of her pieces, personal narratives that encapsulated her growth. She decided to self-publish a small collection to share her stories with friends and family, an act of courage that marked her transformation into an advocate for herself and her children. On launch day, she invited her children to join her in the celebration. They beamed with pride, their mother was finally becoming the woman she had always sought to be. As friends marveled at her writing, sharing their appreciation, Sarah felt the liberation of her journey unfold like a beautiful narrative, one where she had firmly stepped into her power, rewriting expectations and reshaping her identity. "I'm so proud of you, Mommy!" Ella exclaimed, her enthusiasm lighting up the room. With her heart bursting with joy, Sarah knelt to embrace her children and whispered, this is just the beginning. Remember, it's never too late to be true to yourself. As her children grinned back, Sarah understood that this journey was not solely hers to bear but a legacy she hoped to cultivate in her family. They were not haunted by fear or disappointment collectively. Safety was found in authenticity, a lesson that would echo through generations. At that moment, beneath the twinkling lights of her home, Sarah felt a solid confidence fill the space where doubt had resided. She was no longer just surviving, she was actually thriving, proving beyond any measure that transformation begins within. This is the moment to make your voice heard. If you resonate with Sarah's transformation, you need to subscribe now to catch the next chapter of exclusive emotional journeys. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these compelling stories reach those who need inspiration. Comment your thoughts and theories about Sarah's journey, what resonates most with you, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.